Walk along the remains of a Viking ship or an ancient timber hall, and you'll see something extraordinary wood that has withstood 1,000 years of storms, moisture and wear. Compare that with modern decks, fences and sheds, which often rot or crack within decades, despite layers of sealants, paints or varnishes. The Vikings weren't using industrial coatings. They relied on a method that treated the wood itself, creating resistance from within rather than simply trying to block water at the surface. For backyard builders, homesteaders and DIY enthusiasts, understanding this ancient technique can transform how you protect your wood, making it last far longer than anything modern chemicals can achieve. The Vikings treated wood as a living material instead of covering it in paint. Modern sealants often create a barrier that sits on the surface, attempting to block moisture. Unfortunately, water eventually finds its way in, causing trapped moisture, cracks and rot. Vikings approached timber differently. They recognized that wood is a living material composed of fibers that respond to moisture. Instead of blocking water entirely, they prepared the wood so it could handle wet-dry cycles naturally while removing the nutrients fungi feed on and hardening the fibers. For backyard projects, this principle means that preparation and treatment of wood itself is more important than any coating you apply. Tree selection and winter cutting created the first layer of protection. Vikings carefully selected trees for their density and durability. Slow-grown heartwood was preferred for structural beams and planks, while sapwood, rich in sugars and starches, was avoided. Timber was felled in winter dormancy when sap levels were lowest, reducing internal nutrients that rot fungi could feed on. In your backyard, choosing heartwood-rich lumber or trees harvested during the dormant season can dramatically improve durability without any modern chemicals. Even small adjustments in timber selection can make a major difference. Soaking timber leached sugars and conditioned the wood. One of the most powerful aspects of the Viking method was water soaking. Timber was submerged in rivers, ponds, or tidal zones for weeks or months. This process removed sugars and starches that feed decay fungi and help the wood absorb moisture evenly, making it far less vulnerable to cracking and rot. Modern builders can replicate this at home by soaking fence post beams or raised garden beds before slow drying. You know, even just a few weeks in water dramatically boosts natural rot resistance without using chemicals. Slow drying really strengthened wood fibers. After soaking, timber was dried slowly under cover with plenty of airflow. This allowed the cellular fibers to compress evenly, increasing density and toughness. Stacking lumber carefully, shielding it from rain, and allowing it to air-dry gradually gives backyard wood the same resilience that allowed Viking structures to survive for centuries. Surface charring and natural oils made wood, well, pretty much impervious to moisture. Vikings sometimes lightly charred timber surfaces, you know. This killed fungi, hardened the fibers, and reduced water absorption. After charring, the timber was coated with pine tar, oil, tallow, or even wax, which really penetrated deeply and repelled water. Unlike modern surface-only sealants, these natural treatments actually worked with the wood, not just on it. This allowed the timber to expand and contract without cracking or letting moisture in, which is quite clever, really. For practical backyard application, you'd lightly torch the surface, remove any loose carbon, and then apply warm oil or pine tar repeatedly. This creates long-lasting protection, you see, far beyond that of paint or synthetic coatings. You know, design made water your ally, not your enemy. Vikings designed buildings and ships to shed water efficiently. Steep roofs, overlapping planks, beveled joints and elevated posts prevented water from pooling. Air circulation helped the wood dry quickly. Water moves freely across the timber instead of lingering and causing rot. Backyard builders can, well, replicate this principle by elevating posts, sloping horizontal surfaces, and leaving gaps for airflow. Design complements treatment to maximize longevity. Maintenance ensured timber stayed protected for generations. Finally, Vikings practiced regular maintenance. Timber was inspected, surfaces were re-oiled or re-tarred, and, minor damage was repaired immediately. Modern maintenance-free promises rarely last, but early attention and routine treatment really do ensure timber continues to resist decay. For backyard applications, it's a good idea to schedule periodic inspections, make minor repairs, and retreat surfaces to maintain the longevity of your structures. Why does this Viking method outperform modern sealants? Well, the Viking technique shows that wood durability depends on preparation, design, and care rather than synthetic coatings alone. Timber selection, winter cutting, soaking, slow drying, charring, deep oiling or tar treatment, and thoughtful design all work together to create wood that resisted rot for centuries. For backyard enthusiasts, homesteaders and survivalists, these principles can be applied with local materials and simple tools to build outdoor structures, fences and furniture that last far longer than anything modern sealants can provide. If you found this guide revealing and want to apply these ancient methods to your next backyard project, subscribe to Backyard Wisdom. Share it with fellow DIYers and history enthusiasts, and help preserve centuries of practical Viking knowledge for generations to come.